Now here's a game I want to review for a bit over a year, but just never really got it in my rotation. Cave Story, or more accurately, Cave Story Plus on PC. It's possibly one of the most well-known indie retro games on the market today, and there's good reason for that, like merely the fact that the game is just a blast to play. You take control of some nameless guy who has found himself in a small cavern with a single save point and an HP regen point. Entering the door, you enter First Cave. An appropriate name. You have no weapons, and just a measly 3 HP and the ability to move and jump. Progressing on for a short while, you eventually find a room with a sleeping guy and a chest filled with a weapon named a Polar Star. From here, the game progresses as you'd expect. You shoot enemies, and try to figure out why your little guy is just running around caverns. The game is often touted as being a Metroidvania, but personally, I wouldn't consider it as such. Yes, you do run around large stages looking for upgrades and defeating enemies, but to me, a Metroidvania game is somewhat open world as well. Cave Story features large stages, but the stages progress on a linear level. You may have to do a minor amount of exploring to find items, like at a point where you find a locked door to a warehouse, find a lady who requests you to find her dogs, and then you have to explore this large zone for the 6 pups. But it's still one large area, not a slew of maps to slog through. You may argue with me on this point, but I've said my piece on it. So yeah, Cave Story is an action platformer. Nothing out of the ordinary on that. You jump around on small platforms, figure out where to go, fight the occasional boss, and then move on to the next so-called stage. Again, some backtracking is available, but most of the times you'll be somewhat locked into the area that you're exploring until you hit the checkpoints that allow you to proceed. There are occasional towns, but being that there's no currency in the game, you're never forced to buy anything. Perhaps the most unique thing about the game is the weapon system. As you play, there's a small handful of guns and other weapons you can find. The Polar Star is first, and at one point you can actually trade it in for a more powerful machine gun, although this is optional. I've read that if you hold on to it, you actually get a more powerful weapon later on. Personally, I love the machine gun, although it does have an ammo system. Basically, you can fire it, and then it reloads when not firing. Upgrade the weapon, and you can use it as a makeshift jetpack. Oh, and all weapons do have infinite ammo, with the lone exception being the rocket launcher. Some of these weapons are useful, others not so much. The fireballs are great for hitting enemies on a lower platform than you, but feel a bit weak. The sword you can get cuts through most enemies, but has a shorter range. Personally, I used the Polar Star machine gun the most, and saved rockets till I absolutely needed them, like the final boss battles. As you slay enemies, you'll see that they drop a variety of items. Naturally, hearts replenish your life a bit. Rockets can be found as well, and they resemble Metroid-style missiles. But mostly, these enemies drop these small yellowish triangles. These are used to upgrade your weapons, up to level 3 with each weapon. Collecting enough will power up the gun, enabling it to do more damage, making the bullets bigger and stuff like that. Once you get to level 3, that's as high as it'll go, but you still want to max out the meter for the simple catch that when you take damage, you lose a bit of weapon XP, possibly downgrading it if you're in a tough situation. Eventually, you can find an item that decreases the experience that you lose when damaged, and it's very welcome, as nothing's worse than doing awesome damage to a boss and then taking a bad hit and now doing crap. At least each weapon has its own level though, so if you mess up with one weapon, you can feel free to switch to another buffed one to finish the job. You can also use power-up weapons to destroy enemies and then switch back to a lower weapon to power it up. And sometimes, it's just fun to watch a ton of those triangles just go bouncing around the screen. There are other power-ups you can find in the style of Metroid. Health capsules increase your max life by 3. Another item you can find are maximum missile increases, which are found in treasure chests that are scattered in the world. In short, you're going to want to find these, because it's going to make your journey much easier. Of course, the weapons don't take center stage in Cave Story, although it does seem like it. The story is in the forefront, and it can feel a bit sparse or minimalistic, but it does do the job well. You talk to NPCs at times to learn what the hell is going on, and eventually you'll be able to piece everything together. It's not a hard plot to learn, which is nice when you have a short attention span, or in my case, a horrible memory. Yet, there may be a point where you accidentally end the game early and get the crap ending. In this, one main character offers to take you off the island on a dragon. If you refuse, citing the fact that you want to save the rabbit-like Mimiga race, the game proceeds as normal. But if you agree to leave, then the character says he doesn't blame you, and you get an ending where you fly off into the clouds and are told that you and the character are going into hiding for the rest of your lives. That's creepy. The music and visuals of the game are accurately retro. An NES-style font is used for the health and damage numbers, which is pretty sweet. The graphics are more in line with the SNES era, and the music is a bass-heavy techno feature. As much as I'm not a huge techno fan, I felt that the theme fits the game extremely well. I especially love the boss theme, as it makes your heart race and accurately represents the fast pace of the battles. Speaking of bosses, there's a good amount of them, and the difficulty varies. They start off fairly easily in your Balrog battles, but once you get the tank-like prototype, the game starts getting pretty frickin' difficult, and as such, it's hard to keep your weapons at their maximum potential. At least some of the battles spawn smaller enemies or projectiles that you can destroy for your normal power-ups, so you do have a little bit of a saving grace if you need it. And yet, the final boss battles are almost like a gauntlet, and you fight the main bad guys of the game, Misery and the Doctor. Misery has a pattern that you can figure out, although she doesn't give you too much to work with in regards to power-ups. When she's almost defeated, she starts throwing orbs around herself that can't be destroyed, and when you do even more damage to her, she'll release them as birds, and those are the only things that she throws that can be destroyed for health or missiles. The Doctor, on the other hand, gives you even less to work with, although I found him to be a bit more easier to take down. And then after the first two forms of the Doctor, you move on to the Island Core, which just so happens to have the Doctor merged with it. You could see it coming a mile away, I promise. This can be the most difficult battle of the game, minus the secret bosses I haven't encountered myself. You do have two smaller minions attacking you, and you have the decision to keep Misery alive for the constant enemies that she throws at you. You can, if you're lucky enough, be gaining more health than you lose. You'll figure it out, and once you defeat them, the ending will make you feel like you accomplished something. It's a retro-style feel-good ending that's done in only a few words. Once you're done with the game, you might not necessarily be done with it yet. There is a harder difficulty available if you so choose. There's a hidden mode that I haven't been able to unlock, and there's also a few challenges that you can run through. The only one that I had access to was the machine gun challenge, where you can have the machine gun with only a 25 bullet limit and have to get through 5 or 6 rooms as quickly as you can. You also get the Booster 2.0 available, so you can fly around for short bursts, which allows you to navigate these rooms even quicker than normal. I'm not sure how you unlock the others, but I'm sure I'll play again to check them out. And that's all I have for Cave Story. If you like retro-style platformers, check this one out. It may not have much of a Metroidvania feel to it, at least according to my opinion, but it's still really fun to play. And it really feels like it could have been made in the late 80s or early 90s. Final score? 9 out of 10. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.